Yeah.
Now it's being recorded.
Okay, very good. So what I'm gonna talk about is related to everyone actually. That's why we want to, I want to share it in my blog, for instance, whatever I'm gonna say. Uh, Obviously, there is a lot to talk about sustainability, renewable energy, and so forth. So it's gonna be different issues that we'll be discussing. And I'm gonna first share my screen with you to get this thing going. And yeah, so basically, just a second, let me do this with my presentation so I can put it in presentation format. Yeah, but so basically, hold on. Here we are. Yeah. So I can put it in presentation format. Here we are. We are ready now. Okay. So everyone can see my my presentation, right? No problem. All right. Very good. So I'm in the first part of my presentation. I'm gonna talk about general issues and how to resolve some of the environmental challenges, and we're going to talk about some problems and some solutions. And in the second part of my presentation, I'm going to talk about more details, more technical details about renewable energy and particularly solar energy. So here we are. Now, this is my background. I have a different, obviously, backgrounds in different type of industries, and I'm a McGill graduate. I have to say, first of all, let me show you the cup. I'm a proud McGill graduate, so I'm at the same time. When I go back to Montreal, I also lecture there from time to time, and I'm proud to say that I'm also a judge and a mentor at the Dobson Cup Entrepreneurship Cup in my university. I started my career as the asset manager of the Ritz-Carlton Istanbul, and then I worked as the project director of Coca-Cola Iraq. We built the first Coca-Cola plant more than 70 years after. And so this was the first investment after the war. And then I became the CEO of and board member of KFC and Pizza Hut. And then I established Eco CCS. And then my first endeavor was Hittite Solar, which is a CSP technology company. And I'm going to talk about CSP, concentrating solar power, in 2011. Apparently, I'm a social entrepreneur. I established Basic Needs Association, Temel İhtiyaç Derneği. This is the roof organization for Turkish food banking. I'm also an entrepreneur. I established this renewable energy company, Ecore, which stands for Eco Renewable Energy, Mocha FinTech company, Bonbon Wi-Fi Analytics company. And in the future, I'm gonna focus on sustainability, renewable energy, water, food, technologies, self-sufficient housing, and whatnot. And obviously, my main focus will be to innovate new models and technologies. That's my passion. And I'm also honorary consul of Costa Rica in Istanbul. Has anyone heard of Costa Rica? Do you know where it is? Okay, where is it? So I like to do my presentations as if we are in a dialogue. So let's chat. And if you have any questions at any point in time, you just talk and ask your question. So where is Costa Rica?
It's
in North America.
American continent, I guess.
No, it's not North America.
middle, Mexico,
Middle.
Bahamas.
Yeah, that's right. It's in the mid part of the Americas, continents of America. So, and it's north of Panama and south of Nicaragua. And it's basically Latin America it's the term we use for Central America and South America, both, including Mexico as well. And so the exact location is Central America. And Costa Rica is a unique country it's related to our subject. That's why I'm going to talk about it. It's the first country that said we're going to be carbon free by 2021, basically next year. And they're already carbon free, I have to say. So they're providing all their energy needs with renewable energy, mostly hydropower. And I'll also talk about this, whether hydropower is renewable energy or not. And it's a unique country that there is no army in Costa Rica, and they abolished it in 1948. And it's protected by the police force. And it's a very peaceful country. That the basic motto of the country is they have this philosophy, which they call it pura vida, which is pure life. And so they live to be happy. They try to enjoy their life. And it's one of my it's part of my also philosophy, personal philosophy as well. And for them, nature is very important. 25%, almost 25% of the country is national park, so they cannot do anything about it. They just let it free. And more than 50%, more than half of the country there is tropical forest, and it's beautiful. So they even have concepts like responsible tourism, where they built hotels basically in line with the forest and the nature. So it's a small country, 52,000 square kilometers. Almost 4.5 million people live in Costa Rica, almost 5 million. But it's a very unique country in a sense that people should take Costa Rica as an example. That's why when they give speeches in United Nations, they have weight and people listen to them. So I'm honored to represent Costa Rica here in Turkey. Now, this is what it is basically. This is what we're going to talk about. There is no planet B or plan B, as we call it, and you see the thin layer, with a little lining on around the world. And obviously this is ozone layer, and this is what protects us. This is how we can survive and sustain our lives. And as you can see, it's a lonely planet, and basically we have to really take care of it no matter what, because at the moment there is no plan B. And obviously now humans are planning to, different countries and private corporations are planning to build a new life in Mars and things like that. But I think we have some time there. And obviously, whatever they built for many centuries, it's never going to be as beautiful as the world. Okay, so obviously they're going to have to build a artificial environment for humans to be able to survive on different planets. And it's going to be thousands of years, in my opinion, to find another planet similar to Earth. So we have to make sure that we take care of our environment, our world. Okay, there is no planet B, there is no plan B. And by doing this, obviously we need to establish this collaboration culture, and whenever you go out there in space, there is no borders. Okay, so you see all these different astronauts, cosmonauts, whatnot, from different countries. You see Americans, Russians, German, French, Italian, Chinese, you name it. And after all, we're all humans. We have different cultures, but out there in space, there is full collaboration, and that's, I think, where we should get to. And you know, whatever work we do in space or in the world, especially after this COVID-19 crisis, we have to make sure that we all humans collaborate, because whoever I call all around the world, all my friends from different parts of the world, we all face the same problem. Okay, so we are in this together. We're on the same boat. And obviously, I'm proud to say that when you lay this out, our country is right in the middle of East and West. Obviously, we show this world map from our perspective. I've seen a world map, that they show in Australia, and they show it from the Australian perspective, and it's a different map. But obviously, we're at the intersection of East and West, and we are very lucky to live in this country, in this region. And I think, all the challenges we face, in my opinion, we have to work towards contributing to humanity and make sure that we benefit from our surroundings. So in the past, throughout our history, we know that we have been cradle of civilizations thousands of years ago. And I think there's going to be a retro effect that we will get back to this position. Right now, we might seem a little, in a backward position, but Turkey will get what it deserves. And I think it's going to start with our generation. And why do I call it Turkey instead of Turkey? I will keep calling it Turkey because I started a campaign last year. Obviously, it's going to take a while to be picked up, but I will insist on calling it Turkey. I don't want to call my country name Turkey, because Turkey, as you know, is this loud animal. You know, some people might have sympathy for Turkey, and some people don't want to eat turkey. You could be a vegan or vegetarian, but this is not our country. So I show this slide in other countries. You look at this picture from Aşk-ı Memnu, and I say, look, we are beautiful people. We don't look like this. So don't call us Turkey, because there is a mathematics into it. Like when you look at the language, anything that ends with IA means country of, okay? You look at all these names, and it's, Albania, country of Albans, basically Bosnia, country of Bosnians, Bulgaria, country of Bulgars, and things like that. And why don't you call us Turkey instead of, where did Turkey come from? There is no sense. I think somewhere in the history, people want to joke with us, or they didn't like us very much and they called us Turkey, or they named the animal after us, or vice versa. It doesn't matter. I think both is bad, so I'll call it Turkey. Now, let's get to the point. As you can see, the world population is increasing at an increasing rate. At the beginning of 19th century, it was about 1 billion. And now it's we're almost 8 billion. Actually, this is going way, it's going quite fast. And as the world population is increasing at an increasing rate, you can see still the world's energy consumption. Basically, what is consumed at most is still fossil fuels. Unfortunately, natural gas, oil, coal are the energy types that we consume the most. And it's still a pity that obviously this picture is changing, but it's not changing fast enough, in my opinion. And when you look at the per capita graph, it's the same thing. Per capita, again, fossil fuels, natural gas, oil, coal. We had people consume these fossil fuels the most, and unfortunately this is valid for Turkey as well, like many other countries. And at this point, I asked this question: how can we save the environment? Because we have all these, challenges, and obviously, the number one option is to change everything to renewable energy. So in 2013, I wrote an article why Turkey should aim 100% renewable energy. And a lot of people kind of made fun of me, and there were people saying that, come on, it's never going to happen. I said, it should happen. It must happen. It's because it's the way we are doing things it's not the way it should be. And not only Turkey, but other countries should also aim 100% renewable energy. And just to give you an example, people say, "Oh, do we have enough resources?" And I'm telling them, "Are you joking with me? It's ridiculous to ask this. Only solar power is sufficient to satisfy our needs." So this is a ad that I took this picture in Saudi Arabia, and it's an HSBC bank ad. They call it SABB in Saudi Arabia, and this ad says solar energy in Saudi Arabia could power the entire world 4 times over. Okay, so this is a fact. Here is another obvious example. Now, this map, you see these squares. Now, where are we in this? Well, what region is this? This is Sahara Desert, right? North Africa. Okay, so basically, what we have here is three squares. The smallest one is the area needed to power entire Germany. Okay. The middle one is the area we need on Sahara Desert to power 25 European countries. Okay. And the biggest one is the area we need to power the whole world. Okay. This is just a very simple example of the potential, solar potential out there, guys. I mean, when people say, "Oh, how about the potential? What can we do?" and things like that, it's here. This is the world. Obviously, why did they pick Sahara Desert? Because it's one of the locations that has the highest solar irradiation in the world. Just to show you, and I can tell you, with the current technologies, and this study was done by German DLR, which is the NASA equivalent of Germany, German agency, basically. And this was done in 2005. At the moment, we're in 15 years later, the squares are much smaller, I can tell you that, because technology got a lot better. We have much more efficient technology. Okay, so this is the potential out there, and we're not using it at all. Obviously, I talk about this, and I get a lot of jokes and some criticism saying that, oh, we can produce energy during the daytime, and what about the nighttime? We talk about solar, and obviously, whenever someone says that, I tell them we can store energy by storing heat and storing electricity. And electricity storage is getting a lot better now, and technologies are, all over the world, different technologies are being developed, and it's getting much better now. And these are technologies that we can use at home and in our vehicles and whatnot. So energy storage is available out there, but there are other solutions that you can build hybrid plants. For instance, you can hybridize solar and wind. Nighttime you can benefit from wind, daytime solar. or summer, winter, you can do the same. Or you can hybridize geothermal with CSP and whatnot. So I'm going to talk about different types, and I'm going to come to that point. And this is the wind potential, okay? And these are only, it's a huge potential, as you can see the wind speeds here. Okay, now let's talk about, Çelik talk about philosophy, and here's a philosophical question. Apart from the potential out there, this is the question I ask. What are the major differences between fossil fuels and renewable energy? And I show this cartoon, and this is a typical fossil fuel guy. Says, you want coal, we own the mines. You want oil and gas, we own the wells. You want nuclear energy, we own the uranium. You want solar power, solar power isn't feasible. Now, when I show this picture, obviously, you talk about fossil fuels, and it's something tangible, okay? So whenever there is oil somewhere, there is a potential for a war or how to share it, right? So you have frictions among companies, among nations, everyone jumps on top of it. So it's one of the major problems we are facing in the Arctic, for instance. It's really a shame that all these countries are still fighting to get a piece of that Arctic fossil fuel reserve, and they're ruining the Arctic, unfortunately. And I've been a proud member of Greenpeace since 90s. And Uygar knows this. I'm one of the first members of Greenpeace here in Turkey. So, and I support their activities in the Arctic. And they should stop exploring fossil fuels in the Arctic, because it's already, they're really ruining the North Pole. And basically, hopefully, they'll come up with a conclusion that they won't exploit the region anymore. So what I'm trying to tell you is, whenever there is something tangible underground or on the ground, people or nations or companies fight for it, okay? And I asked this question to everyone. Who owns the sun? Who is the owner of the sun? Tell me. Yeah, go ahead, guys, talk. Who is the owner of the sun?
Creature, human, or another creature living in the world. I think everybody owns the sun. Maybe nobody owns the sun.
Yeah, both answers are right. Everyone and no one, everyone owns the sun and no one is the owner, basically. That's the answer. So you're right. So when there is solar potential, there is nothing to fight for. In reality, it's not only solar power, it's what I call it, I also have another name that I like to use, environmental energy. I use it, renewable energy, environmental. So whatever we have in the environment, we can utilize it. You could have certain things I'll give you I'm going to name you a country, okay? For instance, Iceland, okay? I've been to Iceland. It's a beautiful country. Is there a big solar potential in Iceland? No, they don't have much of solar energy, right? But they have something else, which is as powerful. What do they have in Iceland? They have geothermal.
Geothermal.
Yeah, exactly. So, and geothermal even has base load, okay? So wherever you go, you either find solar, wind, geothermal, there is something related to that region. So you can support it with. So there is nothing to fight for, because everyone has their own piece. So the answer to this question is, obviously it's written here, obviously renewable energy brings democracy, peace, and lowers the carbon footprint. And these are really important in today's world. And here we talk about renewable energy types, okay? obviously you could talk about many different many different types of renewable energy, but as I call it, environmental energy. We have solar energy, and solar you can have two types of solar potential. You have power, electricity, and you have heat. Okay, so and for electricity, you have photovoltaic technology mainly. For heat, you have CSP, concentrating solar power. And to explain to you what concentrating solar power, obviously there are different types of technologies. You have, parabolic trough, you have tower technology, linear Fresnel, and so forth. But I'm not going to go into these details. All I can tell you is actually Turkish people and many other people already know about producing heat out of solar potential. You know, we have the water heaters on top of our roofs, right? Especially in southern part of Turkey, we have these heaters that we already benefit from. So CSP is like, you know, these water heaters are like the primitive versions of CSP and small versions of CSP. So you can produce really, heat, superheated steam with these technologies, and by hooking it into a steam turbine, you can produce power even through CSP. And for PV, you know, there are different technologies like crystalline technologies, thin film technologies, and they have their own different types of technologies as well. Polycrystalline, monocrystalline, monocrystalline with PERT, TOPCon, or heterojunction, you know, all these different type of technologies. But at the end of the day, what I can tell you is that photovoltaic efficiencies and also CSP, but not as much as, the improvement rate is not as much as PV. The efficiency is increasing really fast, and the cost is going down. And I'm proud to tell you that whoever talks about fossil fuels in Turkey, you can tell them that with our solar irradiation levels, now they have always shown that coal is the cheapest energy source here in Turkey. That's not the case anymore. Solar LCOE is less than coal. So in fact, we don't need subsidies anymore. Whoever brings this subject up, just tell them that. And whenever I talk about LCOE, please write this down and look into details. LCOE means levelized cost of electricity. And when you compare two energy sources, you compare two things. One is the efficiency, and the other one is cost. So at a certain basically area, what's the energy output and what's the cost of producing that output is what you need to find out. So the lower LCOE you have, the more advanced technology or type you have, more it's superior to the higher one, basically. That's how we compare it. So LCOE of solar is lower than LCOE of coal here in Turkey. I can tell you that. So, fossil fuel guys, they should stop talking about, renewable energy relying on, subsidies. It's not the case anymore. So we have wind potential. We have a huge wind potential here in Turkey as well, almost like 50 gigawatts. We have a good hydroelectric potential, and obviously all over the world there's hydroelectric power plants. But now there is a big discussion whether hydroelectric power plants are renewable or not. So that's my question to you. What do you think about this? That's why I have the question mark. So tell me, hydropower is renewable or not? And what's the reason? Come on, guys. You're all smart fellas.
Yes,
We are very,
hydropower becomes renewable in a sense that how we utilize the water to generate electricity. Like if we build a dam, like lifetime of dam is 50 years. After 50 years, you have to rebuild. So it's depend on the ways how to use water to make electricity. I think to make it more efficient.
Yeah, I mean, you answered it in a way, but there is more to say. Any other replies?
Guys, we
Thoughts?
talked about this in hydro. You should know this quite well, right? We talked about why hydroelectric is not sustainable. So maybe you want to tell why you don't think hydroelectric is sustainable, right? Why it doesn't renew itself.
We
yeah,
also
okay.
said it's like it releases, when you fill the land, it releases methane gas. So it's like one of the reasons that it's not sustainable, I think.
Yeah, you need to build it very carefully. That's for sure. I mean, a lot of these hydro plants, they ruin the environment. You're right. But there is more to say about hydro. Okay. So
Cement production. During cement production, the carbon emission is high.
yes, but before cement, obviously cement is a huge deal, and you need to build it at very carefully. You know, make sure that you use the least possible cement or barrier to block the water and create this reserve. But I think the first thing you should look at is basically, you know, when we call renewable, the source should be renewed all the time. So when you talk about solar power, it's endless energy, okay? It's been renewed all the time. When you talk about wind, it's blowing from a certain channel all the time, okay? There is a flow. And for the other things too. So it has to be renewed all the time. In many of these hydro power plants, unfortunately, the way they are built, they cause drought in the region, okay? And some of them, especially, I can give you an example of some of the hydro plants built. My mother is from the Black Sea region. And I can tell you that, unfortunately, these greedy business people, they built 4 or 5 dams in a row, and they, because they all try to earn money out of the flow of water, at the end they cause huge damages in the environment, and they cause drought. And the water source is basically in a way that it's getting less and less and less, and at the end of the day it's not able to support all these dams anymore. So it has to be built very carefully in a way that the water source is not affected and it's been renewed all the time, okay? So that's the key. In many places, this is the case, but mostly, unfortunately, they're built in a way that they don't care about the environment, and they cause drought, and at the end of the day, water is getting less and less. And I have to say, I'm from the energy industry, but water is more important than energy, because without water, we cannot live. We have to really take care of our water resources. So this is what I can talk about hydropower plants, and we have geothermal as well. You know what geothermal is, right? What is geothermal?
This is energy come up from the center of Earth. We pull up the heat water and use the heat to produce electricity, and give condensate water into the earth.
Yes.
Yes.
You know, yeah. Anybody else? This is a good
Yes.
answer.
Geothermal, geo mean earth and thermal mean heat. Yeah, it's earth's internal heat. We can use it like for heating purpose. We can use as a like geyser, water, steam to run turbines to produce electricity.
Right, exactly. So both answers are right. You have to go to the center of the world, but that's the main source. You're right. Basically, I just give this simple example that underground is like the oven. You know that there is constant heat there that we can benefit from, and you extract that heat. Obviously, sometimes there's also water underground. So already there is hot water, or you basically heat the water yourself. There are different types, and basically you benefit from that heat. And I can tell you that especially geothermal is important. It's a renewable energy type because it has the base load. Have you heard of the term base load? Do you know what base load is?
Yes.
Yes.
What is base load?
It is a source of energy which is always on, so it can continue the infrastructure of energy to continue working, where intermittent sources of energy kick in and kick out.
Yeah, exactly. So in simple terms, it means having energy available 24 hours a day, all the time, whenever you want to extract energy. Okay, and geothermal has it. You can produce energy, basically electricity out of PV when they're during the daytime, right? And you need to store it in order to utilize this electricity during the nighttime. But for geothermal, you have it always available there, and that's why it's particularly important. And you can also, as I mentioned, hybridize geothermal with CSP here. This is also you can produce heat out of solar potential. You can increase capacity of a geothermal plant or efficiency of a geothermal plant by hybridizing CSP with a geothermal plant. So you can combine them both. So on surface, underneath the surface, you can benefit from. And heat pump, I have to say, is something that is going to be a standard in the future. That this is like a distributed generation model of geothermal. That whenever there is potential, a geothermal potential wherever the houses are built, you can have this heat pump feature in your home and have access to free heat. You can use this heat to heat your home, heat your water, even you can use it for different purposes for your different energy needs. Okay, so heat pump is going to be a standard, and this is instead of a one big plant, it's like having a small geothermal plants in every house. Think of it this way. We also have biogas, biomass, and biofuel. Do you know what these are as well?
And biogas, I think it's produced from raw materials, organic matter. I think that biogas. It's a kind of energy, renewable energy, and produced from organic matter.
Like, for instance?
Yeah.
Organic waste, right?
Organic waste, yes.
Yeah.
From agricultural.
That's right. Okay. So you have either, obviously this plants, like, different types of plants that you can use, and you have animal, when animals basically cow, it could be cows, chicken, whatever, and whenever they basically they shit, that you use that waste and the plant-based waste, organic waste, and even organic waste out of factories that you can put in a tank, and then what causes is like there's a special process where methane gas comes out of this tank after a certain period of time. You burn this methane gas, which is basically a low calorific value of it's like a natural gas. You burn it, you produce heat, you produce electricity, and the residue is you can use it for as a fertilizer basically, and it's in two formats: in solid format, in water form, liquid format. But the soil loves it, so it's a big deal, especially for the natural cycle, because just for you to visualize, I'll give you an example. Let's take a cow, okay, and the cow, let's say, eats the grass, and then as a waste, shits, and you collect that shit, you put in a tank, and then you have methane gas comes out. There's a fermentation period of time, and then you burn that methane gas, you produce power and heat, and then the residue is like you can use it as a fertilizer. You put it on the ground again, grass comes out, cow eats it again. So there's a cycle, natural cycle there, okay? So it's important to think everything in terms of natural cycle. You need to put everything back to the cycle instead of ruining it. And so that's why, in my opinion, biogas is important when you look at the procedures, particularly important. And there is also biomass and biofuel. Biomass is something that you burn things like wood chip, and then anything you can burn, you can produce power from, or you extract energy in liquid form by producing biofuels. And you have different uses of this as well. There are different plants that you can extract energy in liquid form. And these are all, obviously, when you burn them, carbon is released, but in order for these plants to grow, they suck carbon. So at the end of the day, it's scientifically proven that it's carbon free, basically. It's carbon zero. So that's why it's people consider it as environmentally friendly. When you talk about biomass and biofuel. Hydrogen, we all know it's going to be one of the essential energy types. Obviously, a lot of there was a lot of discussions about electric vehicles versus hydrogen vehicles, but there has been some challenges with the technology. But hydrogen will certainly be part of this scheme that will produce power out of hydrogen, and it's really clean energy. And I hope some of the people all around the world, they keep pushing for this, and we need things like hydrogen as well. And when we talk about environmental energy, we talk about many other types, like you can produce power from any type of movement as well. So we have wave, we have tides, tidal energy, even some organic, some organisms like algae, and there's a lot of different types of energies that you can we can benefit from the environment to be able to produce energy. So I mean, you talk about different types of renewable energy, and you see many different types here. Only solar power is enough for our energy needs, much more than what we need. But you have different types as well all around the world. And that's why I keep saying that we need to aim 100% renewable energy. Every country should aim that. And this shouldn't be a question. And this shouldn't be a discussion point. And obviously, people talk about, what will happen to fossil fuels, which I will talk about in my following slides. And I want to give an example of visionary country, Germany, which basically Germany literally started solar energy. I don't know the story, but in 1999, 2000, apparently, the German state took a look at the position where they said, look, we need another industry to develop, like the automotive industry. Germans are very good engineers, basically. And they looked at different alternatives. And one of the conclusions they came up with is they said, hey, we need to develop solar energy. At the time, solar energy was like a joke for everyone because the technology was too expensive and nobody wanted to deal with it and so forth. But they had a very good plan. They said, why don't we support this industry? We say, we have those solar panels, PV panels since, 50s, 60s, it's been there for a long time, but somehow fossil fuel industry was so dominant that they didn't let them develop technologically. But Germans said, we'll give a price, a tariff to support solar energy industry. And they said 50 euro cent per kilowatt hour produced. It's a big price for such an effort. So they say if you produce power out of solar energy in Germany, and solar irradiation rates in Germany is less than our worst region here in Turkey, the Black Sea region. Imagine it's quite low, the solar irradiation in Germany. But they said anything you produce out of solar energy, we're going to give you 50 euro cent per kilowatt hour. And everybody looked at it, all the bankers, all the investors, they said, hey, this is a good deal. And they start investing in it. And all of a sudden, all these projects start to basically be developed. And at the end of the day, all these projects, solar projects, picked up. And because there was a huge demand for solar energy projects in Germany, banks start to finance it. There has been increased amount of manufacturing. And because many solar panels and other inverters and other solar plant equipments were produced, prices start to come down. As the prices were coming down, German states start to lower their tariff. And now today it's like 6-7 euro cent, and even with the solar radiation rates, it's bankable because it came down to a level where it was unimaginable for many people or countries. But because of that, Germans started the industry, and then Spain picked up and other countries picked up. Finally, China picked up and became a dominant player in the industry. Basically, we give credit to Germany for starting such an industry. And because of that, all their experts work all around the world, and they have the expertise for many years. Now, we asked this question, how to save the environment? And the second answer to that is basically, we need to make adjustments to the capitalist system, because with this current system, it's not sustainable, guys. Everything is based on consumption, and it's when you talk about white capitalism, it's like we consume no matter what at a fast pace, and the world cannot handle it anymore. And it's one of the reasons why we face the coronavirus problem. It's a way, a lot of people, experts see this, and I agree with this view, that it was a way that the environment, produced the virus to protect herself. And obviously, a lot of people talk about, it came out of bats and different animals, and came in this animal market in China, Wuhan, China, whatnot. We don't know the reason, okay? But we all know that, virus exists in this world for millions of years, virus, bacteria, whatnot. And unfortunately, when we exploit the environment, like I was talking about Arctic, right? And when we have global warming, a lot of these virus types will come out, okay, and will be chances are we might have more pandemics in the future, unfortunately, because we ruin the environment, we ruin the balance. So we need to make sure that we establish, we don't establish a new system, but we change it in such a way that every human or company, whoever is functioning, if they take good care of the environment by their actions, they should be awarded. And if they basically cause harm, they should pay a price for that. They should be penalized or pay a price for that. So we need to establish these systems to balance, and we need to establish these systems as soon as possible. And the other thing is we are going to have to work on energy efficiency, and energy efficiency is like the brother or sister of renewable energy, because what we say is the cheapest energy source is the energy saved. So we have to make sure that we save energy, we bring the energy consumption levels to energy consumption to optimum levels. And then wherever is needed, we need to produce, we need to consume out of renewable energy. That's how it should be done. And maybe I should add another point here, which I didn't write here, is the other thing we need to pay attention is, especially at this time, we all live in our houses. And I've been saying this for more than 10 years, but it's going to come to this level where basically we're going to live in a way that everything is going to be distributed generation. Do you know what distributed generation is? So that's my question to you. What is distributed generation?
It is off-grid system. Every houses, every consumers produce their own electricity.
That's right. That's absolutely right. But to really define it, I can tell you is basically production and consumption at the same site. That's what it is, okay? Everything is gonna be in the future distributed generation. So all our homes, our offices, energy, water, food, essentials of life will be produced and consumed at the site. So in other words, we're not gonna eat tomatoes in Istanbul coming from Antalya. We're going to be producing tomatoes, either in our garden or somewhere nearby in our district or in Istanbul, worst case scenario. So everything it has to be handled just in that area, specific area. So that's why, I'm going to talk about this, that there's going to be self-sufficient housing, okay? That's going to be, we're going to change the way we live, and particularly when we live in our houses now, our power comes from a power plant, but in fact, it's much more convenient if we produce it out of a solar plant on, basically, if we have a rooftop or something, okay? So we're totally independent, and we produce our own power, our food, and water.
Can I add something?
Can I also add something?
Sure, go ahead.
Mr. Saran, I think this is the definition of prosumer. That's right? We are all prosumer. Yeah? Is it right?
Yes, this is Uygar likes this expression very much, and I agree with him. So prosumer, you can call it prosumer, and this is the type of environment we're trying to initiate. Obviously, people like you're lucky to have a professor like Uygar, and I consider myself to be from the same team. That we need to have, obviously more we need to live in this fashion, prosumer fashion or self-sufficient fashion, whatever you call it. So this is why, now everyone is locked in their own houses. They cannot go out, or they go out only if they need to. And imagine this type of environment. So we feel it even more now. And in order to reduce the carbon footprint also, we need to make sure that we produce and consume at the same site or same region, same district, okay? So
I want to add something to.
Go ahead.
I watch a presentation in TED, and there was a man from Bhutan. Maybe you also watched it. If you don't watch it, I recommend it. I don't remember the name. They claim they have a negative carbon emissions in Bhutan, and they started measuring their economies with gross national happiness, not GDP or gross domestic product or gross national product. And the important thing I very impressed, they add sentence to their constitutions that forest areas cannot be less than 60%. It is very important, I think. I'm very impressed.
Yeah, I watched that documentary, and I really like those guys, what they're doing there. And in fact, because of the actions of many other countries around them, particularly in that area, China, they're also suffering too, unfortunately. So countries like Bhutan or Costa Rica should be taken as an example. And I think I have to say that for them to have a carbon negative effect, they need to have more trees, and obviously they need to have a special culture to give this result. And obviously it's one of the things that you could think of in the future is planting more trees, or vegetation is very important. That's the only way to to bring those carbon levels to the desired levels, basically. So I would say that having take care of your environment, plant more trees. It's one of the things that we should always pay attention to, because obviously, carbon levels are at a peak high, and it's increasing at an increasing rate still, and we cannot control it anymore. Actually, unfortunately, this COVID-19 crisis, one of the results of this pandemic is no one is moving, everyone is in their homes. Carbon levels came back to normal levels, and it's more bearable. And it's very sad to see that this result of such a pandemic is caused something nice at the end of the day in terms of environment. But we shouldn't have a pandemic to get this result. A pandemic should not teach us to live like this. We should have already implemented this kind of culture in order to cause less harm. Just to give you an example, one of the major carbon producers in the world is, when you talk about, for instance, air flights, okay? This jet fuels for airplanes. It's a massive carbon producer. And every day we have hundreds of thousands of, even millions of flights all around the world. And imagine how unbearable it is for the world, and why we have depletion of ozone layer. So now the airline industries, I hope they don't go bankrupt, but they should also change their methods as well. So instead of jet fuels, they should invest in basically solar electric planes, okay, instead of burning these fossil fuels. So when we talk about fossil fuels, we should talk about utilizing fossil fuels as raw materials. So whenever I say raw materials, what I mean is, for instance, take oil, okay? Instead of burning them and causing, you know, a huge carbon print, we should utilize them to manufacture like petrochemicals. And we talk about hard plastic that is used in many different types. And those hard plastics should be recycled all the time. We should not burn it. We should keep building things with it. And then when the use is over, we should recycle it, okay? That's the way it should be. For instance, natural gas should be utilized to manufacture fertilizer and whatnot. So what I can tell you is future generation will say, these guys were stupid. You know, they're gonna call us stupid because we burned all their resources for raw materials and we caused contamination in the environment. So I can tell you that. And, you know, we talk about city planning and how the architectural design of housing should be done. We talk about self-sufficient housing, and there needs to be some sort of interconnection in terms of energy and water supplies and even food, so they can nearby, they can support each other, okay? That's how it should be designed, new cities. And wherever you have roof, you have the sun is hitting, you can benefit from that. You can even produce food on the roof, okay? If you don't want to build a solar plant, you can do that as well. So now we are wasting all that solar potential, and I'm not talking about only roof. You can even produce solar power out of paint, you know. There's special paint that is produced with nanotechnology that you can even utilize the walls. So we have, we talk about solar electric vehicles. Right now we see electric vehicles, but having an electric vehicle is not enough. We need to pay attention to where the source is coming from. So if you're using electricity, you have an electric car, but your electricity is coming from a coal-fired plant, then you're burning coal in your car, okay? So it's not good at all. In fact, it's much worse. So you need to have a solar renewable energy plant, produce energy out of renewable energy, produce electricity out of renewable energy, and then use that electricity for your vehicles. That should be the model, or for your home. And then we need to educate everyone in terms of environmental awareness and consciousness. This is very important. I think younger generations are more aware of what's happening, but we need to do much more. It should start from elementary school, and at every level we should hit those points. Take care of your environment, take care of your environment no matter what. I talk about natural cycle. We need to think everything in terms of putting back in the natural cycle, okay? World population is a big challenge because it's increasing at an increasing rate. And instead of, what I call it, you know, quantity versus quality. Instead of having more and more kids, we should pay attention to how we raise those kids, okay? And in the future, in fact, because of AI, artificial intelligence and everything, there is not, we're not gonna see all these blue collar jobs are going to be eliminated. Okay, so machines will do the job, and in fact in a much more efficient way. And so instead of having more kids working in low paid labor type of jobs, we need to focus on having even one or two kids and educating them in such a way that they're so smart that they can contribute AI or any kind of technology or other things. So this is what the world should be facing, and I think we should change education systems all over the world in such a fashion. And in my opinion, we have seen the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, and now more and more people are jobless. You look at them, our barber, hairdresser, waiter, or SMEs, small, medium enterprises, okay? They are all, SMEs went bankrupt. People are losing their jobs. They're at home. They don't know what to do. I don't know how to cut my hair at the moment. I'm going to figure out, but obviously I cannot go to my favorite barber shop to have a haircut. It's not the case anymore. So all these people, they don't have jobs anymore, and they don't know how to learn. Now, all of a sudden, they're in a position where they're now what we call them part of people in need category. So they need to be helped. So I think in the future, I don't know how our government will handle it. We're not that rich, but there is maybe a possibility that they're going to impose basic income for everyone, so people can live to a certain level. Obviously, countries with huge populations like India or China will have huge challenges, because machines will do more and more things that humans will not be needed for, and there's going to be unemployment rate is going to go up big time. So we need to, this transmission period, we need to plan it and make sure that we go for the quality, not the quantity, in terms of population. Now, all these things like paper usage, increasing the population, and obviously recycling things, we need to establish the recycling culture. Whatever we do, we have to recycle it. The water we use at home, we need to recycle it. The waste we have at home, we need to recycle it. We need to have this recycling culture, and waste management is going to be very crucial that we need to pay attention to. Obviously, we need to protect our water resources no matter what, because water is life, as I mentioned previously. Obviously, we're now travelers in the space, and we need to discover more about the universe. Obviously the closest one is Mars, but we're gonna go, humans are so smart that we're gonna figure out different planets and different systems outside of our solar system, and we need to find a way to benefit from them. Obviously I'm not talking about exploiting those planets, but doing it properly, so that we don't we kind of stop the wild mining industry in our planet, and maybe we do mining in other planets or systems. And obviously for all these efforts, we need to keep improving technologies, make sure that we dedicate enough budget for R&D efforts. And I think public and private sectors, everyone should put an emphasis on this and make sure that we dedicate enough budget to keep improving the technologies and continue our existence on this planet and in the universe as humans. So this is all I can say, and these are the examples I can give you. So this was the first part of my presentation, and I can either continue or we can take a break, whatever you desire. So you tell me, you want me to continue or take a break? 5 minutes.
Probably it's good idea for people to get up, stretch, you know, and then come back. I would say, shall we again meet at 19:30, all of us? Okay?
Okay.
So let's make sure to meet back here at 19:30 exact, okay?
Okay.
Okay, very good. So you can also pause the recording, Uygar.
Yeah.
Okay.
Started.
All right. So basically, as I mentioned previously, I started my career but after my experience. I was the CEO and board member of KFC and Pizza Hut. And I continued that until the end of 2011. And basically, the last thing I did in that position was with me and my team, we built the first green restaurant in the whole Yum International chain. And this was imagine a KFC store, Kentucky Fried Chicken store in Bostancı, Istanbul, with a LEED certificate. And imagine a building where on the roof we have solar panels, kitchen is specially designed, and basically, you know, in a way that there is a minimum water consumption, and also even the toilet, we use minimum water, and we built in such a way, and even the way how to reach it, logistics of it. So we were able to get LEED certificate for the restaurant. This was the first, and I was part of that project as well. And I kept talking about it to the whole industry. I even called other general managers of other companies, some of our competitors. I said, hey guys, we did this, so why don't you do the same? And I gave them the mathematics. You know, it's basically a 20% more investment, but because of the savings, the payback period was 3 years. In fact, nobody picked it up after I left this position. So
you also want to explain what a LEED certificate is for everyone, because they might not know. What is a LEED certificate?
Yeah, so there are some standards for buildings where you build with such standards. For instance, as I mentioned, you put a solar panel, or you built in such a way that the isolation is very good. How you reach the building, if there's public transportation, if there is minimum usage of water and other resources, and so forth. So there is a way methodology to measure how environmental friendly your building is. So if you are up to a certain standard, and there's a lots of obviously procedures and documentation, you get this LEED certificate, where it's given by an NGO in the US, that obviously you need to satisfy the standards. And there are other green certificates around the world, but LEED certificate is number one, and it's I think the academy, the NGO, is located somewhere in the US, and they do a good job. And there are many buildings that have LEED certificates, and they try to be environmentally friendly, and it's a good step forward. In my mind, it's not enough, because in my mind, every building should be built in such a way that they are self-sufficient, environmentally friendly. You see, for instance, high-rise buildings that have LEED certificates, it means they're a lot better compared to other high-rise buildings. in terms of carbon footprint, but still there is some carbon footprint. So we need to, in this time period, we need to try to go beyond LEED certificates or any kind of other certificates. But at the time, this was the first and was a good step forward. And I set up an example. I left the position and nobody picked it up, unfortunately. And after that, I did what was in my heart. I said to myself, if I'm gonna do start as an entrepreneur, I'm gonna do what's in my heart. And I talked to my father. I was lucky enough to have a father who would give me a loan, not a big amount, but still good enough for me to start. And I told him that I want to go into solar, and obviously he was questioning my decision. In 2011, nobody was talking about solar power, and I told him that I want to do this, and he gave me some money, and I put all the money in this technology to commercialize the technology, which was a CSP parabolic trough technology, direct steam generation. We did a good job. In 2 years, we built pilot plant and in Denver, Colorado, here in Turkey, in Izmir. But at the time, my technical partner, I couldn't convince him to change the business model of it, because I was managing the commercial side. And I tried to explain to him that instead of trying to compete with PV industry, because CSP, the output is heat, basically. So I told him we will never be able to compete with PV industry. That was my analysis. And in fact, I realized that after 2 months, in a short period of time, but it took me a while to try to convince him. I convinced him to a certain extent, but then he changed his mind again. So I told him, instead of competing with PV in terms of electricity, we need to focus on heat, which is the main output. So instead of trying to build power plants and produce heat and hook it into a steam turbine and try to produce electricity at a high cost, we need to benefit from this heat to support factories that need heat, or to hybridize with geothermal plants and so forth. So I told him that my idea was to basically downsize the collectors, make it smaller, so we can fit it in factories. We can even hook it into absorption chillers to produce, to cool or heat a building. Absorption chiller is an amazing machinery that you can do that. So my idea was to implement distributed generation rules in CSP. And I changed the opinion of my technical partner. We did R&D and we downsized it. And while the collector was almost ready, one day my partner came and said, I don't want to do this. My dream is to build big power plants. So I'm not going to deal with these small collectors. I told him, look, if we continue this way, we're gonna bang the wall and we're gonna go bankrupt. And I don't want to be there if this is gonna happen. So I told him, if you're not doing this, then I'm out. I don't want to stay in this company. So I declared that I'm selling my shares. And I was lucky enough that in 6 months, I found a foreign investor. I sold my shares and got out. And then I established Ecore, which, I went into the right industry, but with the wrong foot. And I went, now I changed my position that I was again in solar industry, but this time with PV technologies. And I started with, it was the perfect timing, 2013, where solar industry just started, okay? So basically, obviously we started with project development, and then we built a team, EPC team. EPC means engineering, procurement, and construction. So we developed our projects. our team built it, and then we operated it. We had an O&M team. And our model was, because I didn't have that much capital, we were basically, as soon as we commissioned our plants, our plant was ready to sell. So we were selling it, and with the cash proceeds, we were building another one. That was the model. But in my mind, I was always looking at different technologies, because we were, as a country, we were importing almost everything. And especially, I look at this, when you look at a solar plant, I call it the brain of the plant is the solar panel, and the heart of it is the inverter. So we needed to make sure that we manufacture the heart and brain of it. That was my opinion. And I started to look at ways how to do that. And I basically came up with this plan, which is this plan. And I was there are two types of technologies. Both are good, thin film and crystalline, but mainly crystalline is the most popular one. 80% of all projects are crystalline. So I decided to move forward. I looked at all the features, and I decided to move on with crystalline. But obviously, as an entrepreneur, you need to be flexible. If there is changes, you need to change your position as well. So this was my plan. When you look at a crystalline technology in terms of solar panels, what's the main material of a solar panel is silicon, as they call it in English, or in Turkish, in many other terms, technically it's silicium basically, and it's found in sand, but it's not a typical sand. You need to have a certain purity level in a sand, and so it's not every sand that has the silicon. And here in Turkey, we have silicium reserves, not everywhere, but in some places. And so my plan was to have a fully integrated facility. And obviously, we can also have silicium refinery, but these were the priorities. So you have the silicium refinery, and then you produce, you get this, and then you come up with an ingot of silicium or silicon, and then you cut it in thin slices, and you have these metal plaques, okay, which we call it wafer. And then after a special process of chemistry, you have solar cells, okay? This is the most complicated process. And with these cells, you place them in a module, and you come up with a panel, okay? So that's how it's done. So in my mind, I was thinking that to be self-sufficient as a country, we need to have all these processes. So imagine, from our own silicium reserves, we produce our own panel. And then you add energy storage next to it. You don't need anything else. You don't need to import energy. That was my plan. So when I was talking about this project to everyone, and one day they contacted me in the Ministry of Economy, and they said, we're going to have a special incentive scheme. Why don't you apply for it? We applied for it as a company, and we received a huge incentive. And it's a big deal for us, because if we build such a plant, we're going to have interest rate contribution for the equipment to be imported, electricity cost reduction, qualified employee contribution for the foreign experts, income tax exemption, employee social security fee reduction, infrastructure support, land allocation for the investment, exemption for the fees of permits, and tax reductions. But please bear in mind that it's a huge deal, this incentive, but it's not a money given to us. First, you need to invest, You need to make sure that this huge plant, the factory, should be operational. You produce, you sell, and out of this operation, you get incentive. You know, you sell, you make profit, there is taxes, and then you benefit from the from such an incentive. So it's like a tax credit system in the US. So I can tell you that obviously we're still working on it, and we had some. If we didn't have this COVID-19 pandemic, unfortunately, we were talking to some huge multinational investors, and we were almost there. If we had 1 or 2 months more, we were probably going to close our deal and expedite the process of building such a factory. But this thing came in between, and we have to wait. So this project is on hold. But after once we are over with this pandemic in our country and people are able to travel, we will continue with our plans. So we never give up. As an entrepreneur, we have to be persistent and consistent, and we'll move ahead with this project, because this project is very important for my country and for the world, and we need to have more of such manufacturing facilities to get rid of fossil fuels. And we were planning to bring other technologies, diamond wire, heterojunction, and diamond wire is the wafering, like the slicing, as I mentioned to you. Smart wire is the interconnection within the cells in a panel, and heterojunction technology is the next technology after monocrystalline. I mean, everything started with polycrystalline, and the efficiencies were like 15–16%, and then polycrystalline came out there. So efficiencies became like 17–18–19%. They added special features like PERC, PERT, TOPCon, and then the efficiencies became 20–21%. And this heterojunction is like takes the best out of thin film and crystalline technology. So it's a hybrid technology where the efficiencies go up to 23, 24, even 25%. And the physical potential capacity of such an efficiency is up to 30%. So, of course, other new technologies will come out. Maybe the material will change. You know, where instead of silicium, maybe, I don't know, graphene or anything else will come out. But at the moment, this is the road map for such a development. And we had the roadmap of constantly pushing the efficiency. And this will happen. So after, heterojunction technology, we're going to have different types of technologies that will come out. But people like us should keep pushing the technology. So these are the comparisons among technologies. The other advantage of heterojunction technology is the temperature coefficient. In a solar panel, I don't know if you heard the concept of degradation. This thing is a big deal, okay? Degradation means on a solar panel, every year, I mean, we have still solar panels that has been working functional for more than 40 years, but not as much as how it started. So every year, you still produce, but just a little bit, the production levels fall down. Okay, so that's what is called degradation. So how much it falls down determines also the efficiency of the panel. So with heterojunction technology, the degradation levels are much lower than typical crystalline technology. And unlike what everyone thinks in terms of solar panel, because people usually think that if there is more heat, there is no production of electricity. That's not the case for solar panels. Usually, you know, if the temperature is hotter than 40 degrees Celsius, the production, the efficiency levels start to fall down. Okay, so you need to have the best case scenario is to have a temperature between 18 to 40 degrees Celsius, and like thin film technologies handle the heat better than crystalline technology, but still the production levels fall down. Okay. So we had the groundbreaking ceremony, but we had to, you know, keep it on hold. And this was the plan. This was the original plan we had. So this is the site in Niğde, Bor. Has anyone been to Niğde in Turkey? No? Okay. So it's people ask me why did you build why did you plan such a manufacturing facility in Niğde, Bor? You know, there are many reasons for that, because we're close to Mersin port, the Mediterranean port, 2 hours away from the port. It's the neighboring district province to Mersin, Niğde, and Bor is in the south of Niğde on the border. And so it's close to the port. There's going to be a railway between the factory and the port. There is, you know, valid silicium resources around. Whole, you know, basically public officials help us a lot. And in that area, we're going to be right in the middle of the solar belt in Turkey, because in Turkey, if you divide it into two, the northern part is good in terms of solar irradiation, and the southern part is very good. So we're in the middle of the solar belt, and right around us, we're going to be close to all the solar plants, and particularly we're at a place in an industrial zone where right across the street, they're planning to build an airport, and next to the airport there's going to be all kinds of solar energy plants that are going to be built. So it's going to be a central location, and we want to also support the idea of rural development, and I think with us coming there, we're going to change the destiny of this province, and I'm happy to see that and to do this for my country. And okay, so this is one of the things we were thinking. This is the factory area, and these are the areas where we were planning to, we reserve this area for other different types of manufacturing facilities for inverters, battery, construction equipment, solar cable, and even within the solar panel, junction box, backsheet, glass frame. So we were thinking to bring some of these producers around us and build a teamwork there. Of course, somewhere in the line, we're going to have to also invest in energy storage. We are evaluating at the moment, but as you can see, you know, I mentioned about energy storage at the beginning of my presentation. According to what you do, what you want, you know, function of your needs, there are different types of energy storages, like from supercapacitors to flow batteries, to lead acid batteries, simple one, high-powered flywheels, even the you know, the natural energy storage. For instance, has anyone heard of pumped hydro?
Yes, we love it.
Go ahead.
It's storing energy in gravity by pumping water upstream in order to use in hydro dams to be refilled into the energy system.
Yeah, okay, very good, actually. So this is what it is. and it's one of my favorites because it's a natural storage model. So there are different ways to store energy, but there are different technologies as well. You know, the typical, from the typical lead acid batteries to lithium-based batteries. If, for instance, you
I have a
you
question,
want to store.
Sarhan. I always wonder about, you know, hydrogen fuel cells. Apparently, they have developed now these small size hydrogen fuel cells that you can even use at home, but they don't seem to be, you know, much in literature, although they exist, and I don't see it also in your graph here. So I was wondering what you think of them.
Yeah, I think we need all of them. We need all these technologies, okay? And hydrogen cells, these type of technologies is certainly could be very useful. It's not my expertise area, but from what I hear from the experts, they say that there are still some inconsistencies in terms of how they keep the energy, and the input output is changing variably. So there are some challenges with technology. Of course, they corrected many of these challenges, but they still have a way to move forward. And if they sort it out, and maybe it's more advanced than electricity, then you see more hydrogen cars. But in my opinion, they still have some room to improve, and of course, hydrogen fuel cells will be needed in the future. So I hope they can expedite their development process. But what I was trying to say is all these different technologies for storage, they're going to have different usages. For instance, in our homes, when we talk about a self-sufficient house, we're gonna use lead acid battery or iron nickel based battery, something that will need more space, but it's more reliable. But in your home, giving more space, like a refrigerator type of space, is not gonna bug you a lot. But in your car, you're going to have to use something that is much lighter, much smaller, which is lithium based. So depending on the usage of the system, I think different storage systems will come into the picture. And obviously, you look at these some of the energy storage systems and how they are being implemented, and these are some of the brands, as you can see. So when you look at the global energy storage future trends, we have the U.S. market. It's obviously U.S. is still the center for all these technologies, and it will keep leading the global industry. But different countries will emerge. Obviously, China is very ambitious, as usual, to catch up. But I think in terms of technology development, US will lead the way for storage systems. Bullish market on both distributed and central generation. I think both will have room to improve, because especially for central generation, we're gonna need huge storage systems to balance what's in there, in terms of the transmission line. Okay, so when you have a solar and wind, energy plants, you need to place a storage system in order to store some of it and balance the grid line. Because if you have too much power on the transmission line, then you have a problem. If you have not enough power, then you have another problem. So you need to have some sort of a storage system in order to balance it. So this is going to be crucial in the future. Right now we have other type of central power plants like the fossil fuels, but hopefully we'll get rid of them soon. But the storage systems should be implemented to balance the transmission systems. And obviously, my ideal is to see more and more distributed generation and to see more self-sufficient houses. So imagine a house that produces power, has the storage system, doesn't need anything else, no transmission line, nothing. Okay, that would be perfect. Obviously, cost and LCOE will be diminished. Every year, technologies are getting better, and costs are obviously going down, and with the costs, LCOE is going down. Different technologies, to be the industry standard for different users, just like what I mentioned. For houses, there's going to be different types of storage systems. For vehicles, different types. Even the planes that I mentioned will be solar electric planes, solar electric vehicles, planes, boats, cars. Maybe they'll have different types of storage systems. A plane will use different type of storage system, car will use another one, and so forth. So more and more will come out. Technology enhancements in terms of efficiency and safety. Obviously, right now, lithium-based batteries are very good. We use them for our cars, but it has, in my opinion, two challenges. Do you know about lithium batteries? What are the two challenges? What do you think? Right now, the electric vehicles, they all have lithium, and even our mobile phones, they have basically.
Lithium is, I think, lithium is not equal distributed. Maybe another. Most of lithium is in the Brazil and Argentine, I think, and it is not the equal distributed element in Earth.
Yeah, so you're right. So one of the challenge is there is limited reserves for lithium, and you can find it in certain countries. You can find it in China. You can find it in Afghanistan, which is a very challenging country. And there are a few other places that you can find lithium, and they don't call it rare earth, but it's almost like rare earth. That it's when the whole world will need lithium-based batteries, how are they going to handle the demand? So that's the biggest problem. That's why they need to make sure to increase different alternatives. The other problem with lithium-based batteries is, I'm going to be very straightforward with this. Sometimes they explode. So there's the challenge of explosion. So in some of the electric vehicles, they had this challenge that I'm not gonna name some of the brands, but they had this explosion problem. But of course, it's very few, and they kind of found ways to get rid of this problem. And but they need to keep enhancing technologies, okay, in terms of safety. This is very important. And there's going to be investments in fully integrated manufacturing facilities like the one that I showed you, our project. And you're going to see more and more manufacturing facilities all around the world. And there has to be international collaborations for new markets and R&D. Just like right now, everyone is looking ways to find the vaccine for COVID-19 virus. And so I'm sure experts are exchanging some information. They have to, in my opinion, to expedite the process. Just like the example that I showed you in the space, that we all have to collaborate because we're all on the same boat. We humans, we need to expedite the development of these technologies in order to be sustainable in this world and in the universe. So to give you a brief summary of what we do, we talk about heterojunction technology. We talk about integrated facility of module, cell, wafer, and ingot. We talk about energy, solar energy cluster with different types of elements, equipments of solar plant, like the inverter or solar cable, whatnot. We are aiming the lowest LCOE. We will dedicate huge budget for R&D, and there's going to be different types of R&D. I have to say, R&D for to increase the efficiency, R&D to lower the cost, R&D to increase different functions like, for instance, let's take this mobile phone, okay, and we need to in the future, whatever we use, they're going to have solar cells, okay? So even with this light I have in the room, if you have solar cells at the back, I put it on my desk, and it produces its own power from the light inside. So it's important to, and you're going to have these solar cells applied to everywhere, whatever we use, cars, cell phones, curtains, you name it. So you need to work on R&D to increase the usage of solar cells that you can apply. And when you talk about solar cells, it's not only these, here you see, for instance, in this terrace, like a bifacial cell, okay? So it has two faces, one in the front, one at the back. So it produces power from both sides. But these are typical cells. You have monofacial cells, you have bifacial cells, you have flexible cells that you can flex the cell and use it in different formats, like a cloth, like for your backpack, for your umbrella. And you can also produce out of organic cells. This is another type of, it's almost like, it's basically literally a plastic, but you can produce power from organic solar cells. It's another technology. So there's going to be different usage of different solar cells for different functions as well. So we need to keep pushing on R&D, and also for the alternative technologies and models as well. There's going to be all kinds of different models. I was mentioning about solar electric vehicles. I was talking about boats, planes, cars. You can talk about applying solar cell wherever sun hits, okay? You can apply it to and produce power from. And most of the time you're not going to need anything from outside, or if you need additional power, you're going to get it from your neighbor. That's how transmission lines will be set up. Instead of getting it from the nationwide transmission line, you're going to get it from from your neighbor or neighborhood. So as a company, we have the aim to create hubs, centers around the world, and make sure that we have R&D centers, and we have the global collaboration for R&D as well. And at the end of the day, we want to also focus on not only renewable energy, but water technologies, food technologies, recycling, and self-sufficient housing. There are many different technologies, and these are all different types of we need to focus on different functionalities in order to keep improving things. For instance, we're in the house, and constantly I remember new things that what we need to do. We take shower, we wash our hands. Where does the water go? Okay, so one of the things that we need to work on is, for instance, recycle the water inside. Just to give you an example, do you know how astronauts derive their water? Like where do they get their water from? They cannot carry a big chunk of water because of the shuttle has certain capacity. Do you know this? How do they get their water? The astronauts in space.
I think they use again and again the same quantity. I think that's, but I'm not sure.
How do they use it? What do they use again and again?
Water they carry.
I think,
yeah, okay.
It came from the urine. İdrar.
That's exactly right. Okay. So I don't want to force you so much but this is what it is, guys. They literally drink their pee. Okay. So they keep recycling it. And the filtration systems is so advanced that you can even drink your pee very comfortably, no problem. Do we want to do this now? No, psychologically, we're not ready for this, okay? Because we have water resources. But the technology is so advanced that you can even drink your pee. Think about this. But we should start by using water we use in the house, shower, washing your hands, washing the dishes, even after the toilet, whatever water comes out, we need to recycle it in such a way that we can use that water for, I don't know, we wash our hands, we can use it in the remaining water for the toilet, or we use it to water the garden or something, okay? So we need to always think of recycling and reusing because we have limited resources, and this is gonna be the way of life. And this is only water, of course. How can what are the water technologies out there? Very simple. And Uygar knows this very well, that actually he used to live in a self-sufficient house. I don't know if he mentioned this to you, in Izmir, that they were collecting rain, right, Uygar?
Exactly. Yeah, I've actually shared the whole system with the class, so they know quite about it.
Okay, very good. So I was lucky enough to stay in his house for a while, and I was like, I really shook his hand and said, "This is it. This is what it should be like." Because imagine in Izmir, the water they were collecting, and they had a storage. All winter they're collecting water, and during the summer it's more than enough. They can use throughout the whole year. So rainwater collection, wells, and if there is no water around, you can even produce water out of air. There is these kind of technologies, this is, obviously this needs to be done for each house. So instead of getting it from the main, system from a dam in Istanbul or elsewhere, we need to handle everything at the site, okay, even water. So these technologies needs to be developed all the time. How can you collect rainwater and distribute it in the most efficient way, or how can you improve the efficiency of water generation system out of air, and things like that. And it's one of the things that I will be dealing with also, to improve these technologies for all the humans around the world. And so this is all I can tell you, and thank you very much for listening to me. I hope I was able to give you the insights of sustainability and how we should live all together and get these messages all around the world. So we are ready for obviously we want to live a world with you know, that is livable for future generations. We screwed it up until this time, and it's time to correct some of the mistakes we made as humans. And I think hopefully with you know, people like you, you know, students of Uygar, and we can all do something about this. And for instance, Muhsina will go back to Pakistan and will say, hey, we need to change this, and maybe she's going to work in engineering, or maybe she's going to stay in Turkey, or whatever we do, guys. We should, I think, have this objective of improving what's around us in terms of sustainability, and even a small step you make is gonna create a huge impact in the future. So whenever people tell me that we need to educate future generations so they work properly, no, that's I don't like this idea. We should start like yesterday, okay? We need to do what's necessary as soon as possible, so we create our impact will be felt in future generations. We don't have to wait for the next generation. That's all I can say. And thank you very much for listening to me. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me at this point. If not, have a healthy and good life.
Thank you so much, Serhan, for this great lecture. It was very informative, but you've also been quite modest, because you've done so much on you know, renewable energy in terms of projects, both I think photovoltaic power plants, as well as wind power plants, even photovoltaic plants for water extraction, the great projects you shared with us in your previous lectures as well, is quite interesting. So, you know, how many megawatts of photovoltaic power plants in total have you constructed?
Here in Turkey, okay, we recently passed 5 gigawatt, and we had an effect of more than 50 megawatt, I can say. So you know, we built quite a lot, but please bear in mind that we talk about, because how the system was established, we built 1 megawatt plants, only 1 megawatt. So when I talk about 50 megawatt, I talk about 50 times 1, okay? Unfortunately, this was how the system was built. They called unlicensed projects. So we built many different plants all around Turkey. And I can tell you that obviously we had, I really wanted to move this beyond the borders of Turkey, but again, you know, technology, investing in technology was something more of a priority for us. So, you know, we, at the end of the process, we decided to, you know, we decided not to do EPC and instead focus on the technology. So we'll see. Hopefully, in, you know, 3 to 5 years, you'll hear me implementing many different projects all around the world with our own technology, and lowering the carbon print all over the world. It's one of my ideals.
I'm sure we will see that as the factory is in the building. So, but 50 megawatts of solar power plants in Turkey is an incredible feat, definitely. And what kind of problems did you face there? I mean, what, for example, to open up solar power generation in Turkey, to make it more distributed, to have more such plants all over the country, what would need to be done? What is missing?
In Turkey, the challenge is obviously the equipments that you cannot find them in the country, that we need to import them. So that's the main challenge. And it's not easy to import them. There are certain rules. Not everyone can import them, and you can import them to a certain level. And also, I think as a country, we have many strong engineers and strong base to be able to manufacture them as well. The other thing is obviously the transmission lines needs to be adapted to these systems. It's another challenge. And the other challenge is, in my opinion, the culture, unfortunately, because when people saw solar energy as the new gold rush, and it's totally wrong, and people in this industry should be in this industry not because they want to make tons of money, but because they believe in sustainability and the philosophy of it. Okay, that's why I'm in this business. Okay, of course you need to make money in order to be sustainable, but a lot of people are really in this business to make money, and in order to make money they lower the standards, and they set up bad examples. Okay, so they shouldn't be in this industry. And the other problem is when you face with people in terms of project development. For instance, you talk to villagers and they ask you, why do you want to buy this land? And you tell them, if you tell them because you want to build solar plant, they triple or quadruple the price. Okay, so because they say, oh, this guy is gonna make big bucks, and nobody cares about what you want to achieve and do, and they have dollar signs in their mind. So it's also a pity that people perceive it, had this perception. So I mean, these were the challenges we faced so far.
And how about your wind projects, Serhan? Do you want to talk about those a little bit as well?
Yeah, we have one wind project that is became a legend in the country. We had so many challenges in this project, but as I told you, we are persistent. We will finish it, as this COVID crisis ends. What happened is, like, first we had as you know, while we were in the financing period, we had the coup attempt in, the 15th of July incident. And then the bank, didn't want to finance it after this coup attempt because we already almost shook hands. We had to find another bank, but the terms were much worse. Anyway, we took the line of credit, and then we started. And then, we had a challenge with this bank, and then the bank, we were short of capital because of this crisis situation in our country. And then it took us 2 years to have this additional loan. And then as we were ready to build it again, we had the turbine company, German turbine company, went bankrupt. Imagine, a German turbine company. And then they want to sell our turbines to another company, and we kind of stopped them. And finally, we reached an agreement, and we rescued our turbines. And then the logistic company, the stupid logistic company, while carrying one of the blades, had an accident and dropped our blade. I'm talking about a huge, the diameter is 160 meters we're talking about, okay? So they dropped this huge blade and they damaged the blade. And while we were, trying to find the proper company, finally we found one in Portugal to repair our blade. And first we were considering either to change the whole set or just repair the blade. And we came up, finally, it was very close that it's accepted that it could be repaired. And while we were having an agreement to bring the expert company from Portugal, this COVID-19 thing happened, and they closed the borders and they couldn't come. And so we were waiting. As soon as this pandemic ends, probably in 2-3 months, we will be able to commission our plant, but we'll finish it no matter what. And obviously future generations will benefit from it and will be proud of it.
And we will be proud of your persistence, that's for sure. After so many years, you're determined and you will make it happen. And that's what an entrepreneur is all about. You never give up.
Yeah.
And you continue making.
You shouldn't give up. You shouldn't give up, and especially in a country like Turkey, where everything is difficult, but nothing is impossible. We have to always be patient and do what's necessary. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions? So,
Yes, I have
Merve, do you have any
questions.
questions? Salih, you have some, and then I will ask everyone to ask one question. Okay, Salih, go for it.
Okay. Mr. Serhan, thank you for your presentation. My question about TİDER, do you have any provide training for housewife about waste or meeting programs? I think the housewife is so important for the process of waste. I think that. Do you have any trainings or programs?
Yeah, I mean, in our TİDER model, we have basically, I can say that we have two main missions. One is we want to prevent waste, and there are different levels of waste. Waste is everywhere, from farming to households, as you mentioned. And the second mission is to make sure that the people in need can stand on their own feet. We have special programs for that. And to prevent waste in our houses is a big deal, okay? And we try to, in our speeches, we mention this everywhere. And obviously, we need to have nationwide campaigns. Already many good work is being done. Like, for instance, when you notice that whoever knows how to cook well, they benefit from when your bread is not fresh, you use it for some to cook something else with this as an ingredient, right? For instance, to cook köfte or something like that, right? And in fact, when I was in Gaziantep, which is my father's hometown, one of the municipalities gave me a book of how to benefit from unfresh bread. That instead of putting it in garbage, you can reuse it and use it for a special dish or different types of dishes. So there was even a thick book for that. We have so many dishes that they utilize for unfresh bread that is usable. These are the type of things that I think we should pay attention to, and we should make sure that almost nothing is wasted in our homes, because there are so many. On one hand, there are people who waste a lot, and on the other hand, there are people who cannot find food. It's not a fair world, and we should think about this. And there's even statistics that there's 1/4 of food being wasted. You can make sure that no one is hungry in the world. Okay, so I think we need to have nationwide programs, and even at school we need to teach these tricks to everyone. Yeah.
And lastly, I just want to remember to you, the one city is have lots of sunny days. Maybe after the NIDE, you will invest any solar panels in one city. Maybe I just say that.
What's your city?
One.
Okay, one.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So I can tell you, one is one of the hidden treasures in our country. Because I've been to one. Okay, I think it has a huge potential in terms of natural wonders and apart from the lake, the mountains around it, you can build beautiful ski resorts. But apart from that, one is one of the districts that has the highest solar irradiation in Turkey. Okay, so we have these very good irradiation districts, but some of them I call them champion districts. Okay, and one is one of them. So Taurus Mountains behind the Mediterranean Sea, one district, Aydın, there are special spots that are the champions, and one is one of them. So I think we need to build solar plants as much as possible in your province. That's what I think. Hopefully, inshallah.
Okay.
Oh, inshallah.
Çelik, do you have a question for Serhan?
Yes, I think, but I'm sorry in advance. I will be talking a little bit about just a simple question, but in that comic strip, in the first 10 minutes of that presentation, it was talking about how solar power is in a sense not ownable by anybody, so it will bring peace and democracy, of course, as well as more ecological sustainable ways of preserving our civilizations. But see, I have a problem with that. Not a problem, but I was curious. I mean, what is owning stuff anyway? I'm not going to obviously go to 16th century Russia to define the foundations of what property is, but I mean, even if I own some property in this city, for example, the only reason I keep owning that property is, in a sense, nobody more powerful than me has tried to take that property away and reappropriating that property, such as some superior military concentration of power or a concentration of financial power, some big industry. I mean, so in a sense, it's not just that the fossil fuels and fuel reserves and coal mines and big facilities are owned by people, but this owning stuff is just not yet redefined for solar power. In a sense, if some military fascist regime decides that, okay, I'm now establishing some monopoly over the infrastructural elements that you would have to use to build solar power facilities, then in a sense, they will own the solar. And that's one part of my curiosity. So my real question becomes, towards the decentralization of this concentration of power, where we have not huge central facilities, but local ecosystems with their own energy resources and their own sustainable lifestyles and resource cycles and stuff like that. To some extent, the political powers or the governments or states will help you, because in a sense, when you go to them and say, look, we need to have energy independence, we are buying all these fuels from Russia, we are buying all these petrol from Saudi Arabia, so let's not do that. So this type of step in this decentralization procedure is aligning with their interests. And I believe, and that's just obviously my personal idea, but The main reason they are allowing these steps and incentivizing entrepreneurs like you is, in a sense, they know they can own whatever you own at any given time if they ever need it. So these facilities are not really incentivized to you. They're basically reserve properties that the government can just grab if there's any need. So my question becomes this. Sorry for the long introduction to my question. I'm usually like this if you didn't know me, but if we make this revolution in a truly, genuinely individual level, that, for example, let's talk about all the billions who have no property. These billions who have no property obviously cannot use solar power now, can they? Because they just need not much, maybe 2 meters squares of area, but they need that area. And the area is actually a property that monopolies can take over from simple people and the governments can take over from their denizens. And so in a sense, do you still agree with that sentiment about that caricature that, in a sense, solar power, I believe, is the ecological future? Yes, I agree with that. But I don't feel that it's really going to decentralize the power structures to an extent to have some facilitating effect for a bottom-up revolution of the people and the ecological subsystems, etc. So what's your opinion on that?
Yeah, so I mean, you have many dimensions to talk about to answer your question. I'm just going to keep it simple. So I can tell you that first of all, the world is going to change. Okay, it has to, and renewable energy and entrepreneurs like us will be huge. Basically, we're going to be one of the tools that will facilitate this change. Okay, and I'll give you another example just for you to understand better. Let's take electricity distribution companies, okay? Mm-hmm. And these are privatized, but they almost work like a semi-private public company, okay? It's a mixed structure here in Turkey. I talk to them. I tell them, we talk about energy distribution company, and these are the guys who, for instance, transmit power from the very eastern part of Turkey to the very west, and they have their own network, okay? And I tell them that they should take the initiative. I talk to many of them. Did they listen to me? No, but they're gonna come up with the conclusion at the end of the day. I told them, look, the world is changing, so you should take the initiative to support distributed generation. So you should finance, in fact, distributed generation in such a way that people put up solar panels on their roofs instead of resisting the change. And I told them, this is like flood. You know, when there's a water flood, you cannot block it. You can resist, block it, block it, block it. At the end of the day, water takes everything out and moves forward, okay? You cannot block a flood. So this is like a flood, it's coming. So you should try to maneuver it, try to direct it in such a way that you go with the flow and move forward, so your company is sustainable. Some of them are smart, like especially the ones with a German partner. I'm not gonna name them, but you can understand. Some of them already are applying what I'm telling them in Germany. And I told them before I was aware of what German companies were doing. So the change is irresistible. It has to happen, and it will happen. Distributed generation will happen. And speaking of owning, no one owns the sun. There is no owner, and sun solar potential is for everyone. That's for sure. If you refer to technology, that's something else. But technology is again is here. Okay, it's in the brains of experts. It's in the brains of entrepreneurs. They know how to deal with it. If you have a factory, that is working well, if you take away certain people in the factory, then you have a dead factory. People don't know how to deal with the technology. Okay, so we need to find a balance between the experts and how they use these technologies, and they use it properly and for the world and for the well-being of humanity. Okay, so there will never be a ownership of state or government of these technologies, because it's, again, these technologies are developed sometimes from the very beginning, and used and actually put in use by the experts. And without them, it doesn't, it doesn't happen. That's why in this pandemic, we criticize how the world is running. You give millions of dollars to football players, okay, and the singers, whatever, and let them rescue you from this pandemic. It's the scientists will rescue us when they come up with a vaccine or a medication, okay? So we need to make sure that these people are well taken care of, and we keep developing technologies no matter what, and we need to be proactive in what we do. That's all I can say.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Ünal, what is your question?
Çelik, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say, I'm trying to find this ecocurrency.net website, and it doesn't exist, and I can't even find it on the Wayback Machine. I can see that it has existed until 2015, but it's really curious why it has disappeared. Somebody must not be very happy with it, I guess. Anyway,
I made this presentation first in 2012. I got this slide from my presentation that I made in the University of Peace in Costa Rica. And at the time, of course, this exists, but I can tell you that it talks about how to support people who take care of their environment instead of people who are demolishing the environment, and giving an example of the Amazon in Brazil. So instead of cutting the trees, if you pay people who take care of these trees and they're in good terms, then they'll never allow other people to come in, and so that's why they're talking about creating an eco currency to create that balance. That's what it is.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ünal?
I have two questions. My first question is, if the oil price keep these levels, what do you think about how renewable energy investment are affect in these circumstances? We keep consume the fossil fuels because of so cheap. What do you think about? My second question is, I might keep going and
yeah, go ahead.
My second question is, maybe it's not about our subject, but I just want to know, what do you think about the location of Ritz-Carlton Hotel? What how do you get permission to build a hotel in the near the Bosphorus?
You're being
Okay.
an activist, you know. This is not related to our the topic, but
No, no.
nevertheless, I'm
But
sure Serhan has an
when-
answer.
Yeah, I wish you showed your face when you asked this question. Okay. Anyway, I'll answer this question to you.
I
all right.
use actually another. I have two cam. You can show me actually. There is two Ünal in this meeting.
I cannot see you.
Can you close your presentation, maybe, Serhan, so we can see everyone on the same screen?
There is another Ünal. It's on. It is my mobile phone.
Yeah.
Can you see him now?
But we cannot see you here. Anyway.
Put your not speaker view, but put the gallery view, Serhan. That's the gallery view is quite nice. If you click on the right top, the gallery view, it's very nice.
Yeah. Okay. So we have it all. All right. So yeah, now I can see you. First, your first question, fossil fuels. Now, it doesn't matter if they lower the price or not. No one is using fossil fuels in terms of vehicles. You know that it's just people are at home and they're not moving. And it doesn't matter if they lower it in such a way that renewable energy. Renewable energy projects will keep going. In fact, it's gonna be much more popular after this COVID-19 crisis. Why? Because we have, as humans, to exist in this world, we have three main challenges. One is a pandemic like this that is threatening our existence. Second is a nuclear. If we have a nuclear war, then it could really threaten us. And then the third thing is climate change, and in fact, this pandemic is kind of a result of such a change, and we will have more changes in the world, and Uygar knows this very well. So people are enough of this, and they want to move forward with the right thing, which is the renewable energy. And in terms of economics, I told to you about LCOE, and the lowest LCOE is the coal, and we do better in terms of LCOE in solar, and so oil, they should. I talk to our fossil fuel friends, and I tell them that they should change their model, and instead of burning it, just find a way to build more petrochemical plants, so you can manufacture stuff, and this is what's gonna happen. We'll always need oil, but we're not gonna burn them. We're gonna use them to manufacture stuff. And coming to your Ritz-Carlton building question, first of all, I didn't build this building, okay? I was, yeah, but you said you. And secondly, it was, okay, it's my father, but I was like, what, when it, started, I was 9 years old, okay? So it's not my decision. I take my own decision, and it's my own life, and I took this path of being an activist. In fact, I'm not a typical business person. I'm not a typical entrepreneur. And third, I know the history of the building. That maybe you'll be surprised if I give you a brief history of how it was built, and then you will understand how things are done here in Turkey. Now, in 1983, okay. And I'll tell you this story to you just for you to be aware. 1983, my father bought the land of the Ritz-Carlton just to have the idea of building a hotel in the region, because in his mind, he said, this area is going to be for this is going to be a hotel area, hotel zone. And he was right with his vision. In fact, at the time there was only only Hilton Hotel, and they want to build more hotels, and he thought there might be a convention center or something. So he bought the land, and he applied for the permission to build a hotel, but the project at the time was it was a short building. It wasn't as tall as this one. Okay, the first project. And then at the time, the mayor of Istanbul told him that he doesn't like this project. His vision was to build a Manhattan type of area in this region, in Dolmabahce region. Okay, so that was his vision, and he said, "I don't accept this project. So make this taller and thinner." Okay, so our building was much shorter, but thicker at the time. How my father's company decided to do, and then he had no choice but to change the project. So he was forced to change the project. He changed it, and then he started to build the project. And then it was the infrastructure was built on at the edge of a hill, so there is a huge infrastructure down there. And when they were going up, the mayor of Istanbul changed, and then the next guy said, "I'm fighting against all these imperial powers," and he created a story like crazy, and he blocked the project. He sued us, and for 5-6 years, they put on hold in this project. So they paused the project, and my father's company had to wait for 5-6 years the result of these court cases. Okay, and after 5-6 years, they won more than 40 cases to start again. So when they were starting, again, the next mayor was opposing the project, and there was all kinds of frictions and so forth. But they continued. They finished the project by winning the court cases. Okay. First of all, I tell everyone that you don't like the building. It's your opinion. It's a subjective manner. You can call it too tall. You can call it ugly. It's your call, but you cannot call it illegal. Okay. The building, in fact, is built with court cases that my father's company won, and there is nothing illegal about it. And people, phrase it in the wrong way. And in fact, I personally, I have my own opinion about the building, and it's not the opinion that I support what was done, but it was the reason why we won the court cases is because in a state, in a serious state, when you give a permit to somebody, you don't take it away. There is like the continuation of a state rule. That's how my father's company won all the court cases, and they continued and they did what was given to them. So this is all I can tell you, and I can tell you that I'm talking about myself, self-sufficient houses, and it's my generation, and I have a different view. And in fact, I don't like skyscrapers or tall buildings. We should go down. It shouldn't be more than 2-3 floors, every house, in my opinion. And all the houses should be self-sufficient. That's my personal view. Okay.
Having built a house like that, and you know quite well that I am an advocate of skyscrapers myself for sustainability reasons. So that's a whole nother discussion which we can have at another point. But Merve, we have only 6 minutes left. So a short question from you and a short question from Muhsine. And Serhan, I ask you please to also answer it shortly so that we can finish on time. Merve.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you for time and for presentation. I will I wonder if there are other people like you in Turkey, especially in this renewable energy, like trying to build new ways and things like that. Like, and is it like getting competitive in this way, in a good way, like you mentioned?
Yeah. So you're asking if there are other people who are in this. Yeah, there are many good people in this industry. I talk about some of the culture clashes within our industry. We have, different types of people in the industry in Turkey. Yeah? We have typical local types who are in this for to make money, and they see it as a gold rush. But we also have people, especially youngsters, the young generation, who are global citizens and who believe in the philosophy of it, and they want to, they want to do well. And there are some good people in the industry, and I think not only in Turkey but all around the world, they're going to do well and they're going to represent our country well. Of course, everyone should be experts in their own area. We talk about there are some people who are experts in solar cabling, and there are some people who are experts in inverters, some people in construction equipments and so forth. So all of them should, in my opinion, focus on their expertise areas, and I'm going to be focusing on literally solar panels. So and I would love to see some of these Turkish youngsters working all around the world.
Yeah.
Thank you. Muhsine, your last question is yours.
Actually, I have no question, but I need your suggestion. Like, we are as energy students, like we are learning by our subjects, but we learn more by practicing, like in practical life. So I need your suggestion, like where should we go for like practicing, like for internships, you say in Turkey, like some, like in any Ikra in your company like this. So maybe we can get more practical way.
Yeah, I mean, at the moment it's not easy, I have to say. But obviously, when the industry will start, in my opinion, it will. We're not going to have enough HR to support the industry, so there's going to be plenty of opportunities. At the moment, there's employment is a challenge. Obviously, we all work at home, and we also, as a company, we gave the decision to work at home since March 16th, and so it's been a month we have been at home. I have to say, but this pandemic is temporary. We all know it's temporary, and when the time comes, follow the industry, and there are some very good companies that even I know some Turkish companies, they have many projects in Pakistan and things like that, like Zorlo, for instance. You can follow them and see if there is opportunities there. So I think there's going to be plenty of opportunities for everyone, because it's one of the areas that will require.
No, but not employment, like just learning for training, what you say.
Intern.
Yeah, I mean, when you talk about internship, I always think about because we had internship program where we also implemented 50-50 rule, like 50% males, 50% females that we accepted as interns. But our aim as the internship program was to employ them afterwards, to get to know them, and if we liked them and they liked us, we would engage. Basically, that was the purpose. So if you want to, be a part of an internship program to learn, you can still do that. I mean, it's similar to employment. If employment opens up, you get rid of this pandemic matter, and if more opportunities open up, you can apply as an intern, which will be a good opportunity for you to learn. And also think about this, you know, working as an intern in a Turkish company, which has some operation in Pakistan that you can transfer afterwards. This could be an opportunity for you as well. But it's you know, for internship and employment is in parallel. It goes together.
Well, thank you very much, Serhan, for this excellent lecture. So I would like to have everyone please open up your microphones. Everyone open up your microphones. Okay.
Okay.
Erik, Merve, Sine. Now give a big hand of applause for Serhan, please.
Yes.
Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
It was my pleasure, guys. I wish you all the best, and I hope you success and happiness, and most importantly, health.
Okay, so goodbye, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.